At a desert race event, a car nearing the finish line suddenly lost control, skidded, and toppled over. The driver, who was not wearing a seatbelt, was ejected through the window and subsequently crushed by his own vehicle as it rolled onto him. Dust filled the area while spectators immediately rushed to provide assistance. This incident highlights the extreme dangers of high-speed racing without proper restraints. Seatbelts, roll cages, and other safety equipment are essential to protect drivers from ejection and crush injuries. Spectator areas must also be secured, and emergency response teams should be on standby to provide immediate medical assistance in the event of vehicle rollovers. On a highway, a police officer had pulled over a car and was speaking with the driver when a speeding pickup truck, which had lost its brakes, crashed into them. What had been a routine traffic stop instantly escalated into a high-speed vehicular collision incident. This incident highlights the extreme dangers of uncontrolled vehicles on public roads. Officers and civilians must maintain situational awareness, and traffic enforcement areas should allow adequate clearance from moving lanes. Emergency response planning, reflective signage, and proper positioning during stops are critical to minimizing injuries from collisions caused by out-of-control vehicles. In a textile factory, a worker setting up a roll of fabric in a roller machine was suddenly caught and spun when the machine unexpectedly powered on. The spinning mechanism trapped him and rotated him violently for several minutes, leaving the floor slowly covered in red. This incident highlights the extreme dangers of working near active roller equipment without proper safeguards. Machines must be powered down and locked out during setup, and safety guards should be in place to prevent accidental engagement. Workers should never operate alone near hazardous machinery, and emergency stop controls must be easily accessible to prevent prolonged entrapment and serious injuries. In a warehouse, a worker standing on the cargo bed of a truck attempted to pull a tarp from a forklift's fork, but he pulled too forcefully, lost his grip, and tumbled off the truck bed, striking the ground hard. What had been a routine tarp covering task instantly became a serious fall from height incident. This incident highlights the dangers of working on elevated surfaces without proper support. Workers should handle loads from stable ground whenever possible, maintain secure footing, and avoid overreaching or using equipment in unintended ways. Fall prevention measures and safe work practices are essential to prevent severe injuries during cargo handling operations. On a highway, a motorcycle carrying 3 riders without helmets attempted to cross the road when a speeding van approached from the opposite direction. The rider looked only one way and failed to see the oncoming vehicle before impact. The collision launched all 3 into the air, with one striking a roadside pole and another landing on rocks nearby. This incident highlights the extreme dangers of inadequate road awareness and a lack of protective gear. Motorcyclists must check both directions carefully before crossing and always wear helmets to reduce the risk of fatal head injuries. Road safety depends on defensive driving, proper protective equipment, and strict adherence to traffic laws to prevent devastating crashes. In a metals treatment facility, a hydraulic line suddenly burst open and released flammable high-pressure oil into the air, which quickly ignited from the heat of the machinery. This created a rapid-spreading fire that devoured the work area in less than a minute. Fortunately, the 2 workers on site immediately evacuated. This incident highlights the extreme dangers of high-pressure hydraulic systems operating near heat sources. Hydraulic lines must be regularly inspected for wear. Shielding should be in place to contain potential spray, and ignition sources must be strictly controlled. Emergency evacuation protocols should always take priority over personal belongings, as seconds can determine survival during rapidly spreading industrial fires. At a waterline installation site, a worker positioned deep inside a trench was aligning a pipe for connection when the surrounding soil suddenly gave way. A large section of earth collapsed into the trench, burying him beneath the debris. This incident highlights the extreme dangers of unprotected excavation work. Trenches must be reinforced with proper shoring, shielding, or sloping to prevent cave-ins. Soil conditions should be assessed before entry, and workers should never enter deep excavations without adequate protective systems in place. Strict adherence to excavation safety standards is essential to preventing burial and suffocation hazards. At a quarry site, a worker driving a truck noticed an oncoming landslide moving rapidly down the slope toward him. Realizing the danger, He immediately jumped out of the vehicle moments before the cascading earth and debris swept the truck down the mountain, destroying and burying it under soil. This incident highlights the extreme dangers of unstable terrain in quarry environments. Slopes must be regularly inspected for signs of ground movement, and early warning systems should be in place to detect potential slides. Operators must remain constantly aware of their surroundings and have clear evacuation procedures to prevent fatalities during sudden geological failures. In a foundry, a truck transporting an industrial-sized open crucible filled with molten metal suddenly experienced a violent explosion, sending the molten material erupting into the air and raining down across the area. A worker from a nearby truck narrowly avoided being struck by the falling molten metal. This incident highlights the extreme dangers of handling and transporting molten materials. Moisture contamination, improper containment, or sudden contact with volatile substances can trigger explosive reactions. Crucibles must be securely covered when possible. Transport routes should be cleared of personnel, and strict thermal and contamination controls are essential to preventing devastating burn and fire hazards in foundry operations. On a highway, a cow that had wandered from a nearby farm suddenly attempted to cross the road. A motorcycle approaching at speed had little time to brake and collided with the animal. Both the rider and the cow were knocked to the ground, but fortunately, they were able to get up shortly after the impact. This incident highlights the dangers of livestock straying onto public roads. Proper fencing and animal control measures are essential near highways, and warning signage should be installed in rural areas. Motorcyclists must remain vigilant and control speed, especially in zones where animals may unpredictably enter the roadway. Outside on a sugarcane stand, a vendor reached across the rolling mechanism of a sugarcane press when her hair became entangled in the moving roller, spinning her and trapping her in the machine. A nearby worker and customer intervened and freed her, preventing more severe injuries. What had been a routine vending task instantly became a hazardous machinery entanglement incident. This incident highlights the extreme dangers of exposed moving parts in food processing equipment. Long hair, loose clothing, and jewelry should be secured away from operating machinery. Proper guards, emergency stop mechanisms, and vigilant supervision are essential to prevent entanglement injuries in small-scale and industrial food operations. On a town road, two pedestrians were crossing outside of a designated pedestrian lane when a speeding car struck them without slowing down. The vehicle continued forward without stopping, even as witnesses attempted to chase it and signal for it to halt. This incident highlights the dangers of unsafe road behavior from both pedestrians and drivers. Pedestrians must use designated crossing areas and remain alert to oncoming traffic, while drivers must control speed and remain vigilant in populated zones. Strict enforcement of traffic laws, proper road design, and public awareness are essential to preventing devastating collisions and hit-and-run tragedies.